Hey there, guys. This is Flamzeron, aka YouTube's Tosuke. I've become kind of a fan of the Dynasty Warriors games, and I've kind of accepted it as like sort of like another franchise that I enjoy. That I'm gonna keep buying more of the games and supporting the series. So I figured I should give my thoughts on it. I mean, I've given my thoughts on Dynasty Warriors games before, and I think I did one on 7, but I'll probably talk about that one. I guess to start off with, because in these videos I kind of assume that you know about the series, but if you don't, I'll just really quickly run. It's a action game created by Toei, Koei. Yeah, Toei. Toei, the people who animate Dragon Ball, Koei made this game. They made the game. They're now called Tecmo Koei. It's kind of like Namco Bandai. This is basically Romance of the Three Kingdoms in an action kind of style. And so with that said, this game is based off of true events that happened in Chinese history. And there's also a Japanese history version called Samurai Warriors, which, we can get to in a moment. And this game is reasonably popular. I mean, if you've heard about it, then you know that there are a crap ton of sequels and spin-offs. And the latest Tales game actually takes its gameplay style from this Dynasty Wars game. And Namco's actually having Koei create the One Piece and Saint Seiya Dynasty Warriors game, which doesn't really make which, if they're doing that, that's a different topic entirely. But yeah, moving on to my favorite characters. My main favorite character is Jahuduin, the guy with the beard and eye patch, voiced by Kirk Thornton, and Kazuya Nakai in the Japanese version, which I think the English version is much better, because the Japanese version sounds really forced, and he sounds almost like he's like a fat, gruff person. I think he's pretty cool, and I like his sword style too, like in all the games, even in 6, because it's fine. Now that I've actually become a fan, I can understand why people didn't really enjoy 6 that much. But even then, he played fine. In fact, it actually worked out pretty well when you think about it. My second favorite character would have to be Sun Quan, one of the brothers of the Sun family. I think he's pretty cool, and I like his style too. He's another one of the sword type of characters. I think he's pretty cool. Other favorite characters include Guan Ping, Liu Bei, Cao Cao, obviously. That's kind of imperative. Xun Zhangjiang, or however you pronounce her name. She's probably my favorite girl out of the group. And Lu Xun, who I called him a Boy Scout early on. He was one of the most flamboyant characters. But recently, he's actually gotten pretty cool. I mean, he's still not cool enough. I mean, he's I don't really look at him as being that cool anymore, though. Just because I kind of see him as like the youthful like general who's gonna rise up one day and become like bigger than things. So But once I heard his Image song that came out on like the Dynasty Warriors vocal album for Dynasty Warriors 7, I was like, wow. This guy is the man. Now, as far as my history of Dynasty Wars, I actually got into the series through Samurai Warriors 2 Empires, which I'll talk about that game separately. But I played that, and it's like, okay, whatevs, it's cool. But I was also aware of Dynasty Warriors, and I had a PS3 at the time. I went to Blockbuster trying to find a game to play, and I noticed Dynasty Warriors 6 there, and I'm thinking, well, I liked Samurai Warriors, and I've heard they're pretty much the same game, so I'll give this game a try. And I played it. It wasn't that bad. It was actually kind of fun. It was interesting. I played as Lu Xun, so he was my main guy. This was early on, so he was my favorite character at the time. So I played as him. He was okay. His fighting style, looking back at it, was kind of, weak. I like the way he does in in Dynasty Warriors 7 where he uses 2 swords instead of just 1. Played as him. Noticed he didn't have all the characters and whatnot. And I remember Nick and I played, and we tried doing some of the missions, and we kept dying at Lubu. So Lubu kind of became like a big villain. I feel like he's one of like those big villains that everyone kind of knows, like the Barbados, the Broly, the Sephiroth, and then there's Lubu. And that kind of group were like the really iconic villains who are big even outside of their series. But anywho, so Dynasty Warriors 6, I enjoyed that. It was okay. And I noticed that they were making the Empires games where you got to make your own character, and it was more of a strategic kind of game. So I was automatically looking forward to Dynasty Warriors 6 Empires, which I knew they were going to make. In fact, I even looked up when they were making it. So, played that. That was actually the first one I actually purchased. This was the beginning of the whole franchise, me enjoying it as a franchise, because once you enjoy a new franchise, you get to a point to where you're buying the games without trying them first, kind of blindly, in a way. But it was still pretty good. The character customization was fine, and, it wasn't as good as the Soul Calibur games, but at the same time, the fighting styles were better. Not because, they were copies of other characters that were cooler. I mean, that's not it, but the thing is there were so many different styles. Even though they all kind of looked similar, because a lot of them were spears and, pole weapons, I mean, you still could get a different kind of style. And you could kind of craft your own kind of person. Heck, in the older ones, like Dynasty Warriors 5 Empires, which is another game I picked up on. That was, my latest one before 7, I think. No, it was, after 7. Yeah, it was after I got 7. That one, because a few of the characters used the same kind of style, but they had different kind of ways of attacking with it. So, that was kind of cool. So I played that on the Xbox. And, it's not bad. I kind of find Dynasty Warriors 5 Empires a little more interesting than 6. Just because I feel like it's a little more strategic, whereas 6 is just more about just kill, all the enemies in the base, and then you get that base. Whereas 5, it's more of break all the towers to defeat a certain amount of enemies, or kill all the guards, or kill all the grunt people, Naturally, I've mentioned that I played Dynasty Warriors Online. That was actually pretty fun. I didn't play it as long. It's kind of based off of Dynasty Warriors 5, so that's a bit of a turnoff. Especially looking at, the newer games, like with 7. Which I'll get to in a minute. But it was still pretty fun. I really wish, the PlayStation 3 version came out in English, even if it was just a loadable thing. It'd be easier, and, the frame rate would probably be better. I mean, it would still be played with an internet connection, but we've seen how MMOs work on consoles. I mean, as far as, connection-wise, they seem to work fine. I mean, heck, DC Universe Online is on there, and that's a major MMO company. Of course, they probably have the, they could probably do that, But at the same time, a Dungeon Fighter is coming out for the Xbox. So, free-to-play MMOs are not only going to be the future, but also they might go on consoles too as downloads. But yeah, I made my maroon-haired guy because I didn't really have, real red hair, which I was fine with maroon. Played it. It got kind of hard at times. I don't know. It's just one of those things where you play a game with other people, and, you start to suck a little bit. And it might have also been that people were probably just better than me in general. Because they would always get, the updates, which I still have no idea how they got the updates so early in the matches. But anyway, the game, it is free to play if you guys want to give it a try and play with other people. But I feel like that's not really necessary anymore because Dynasty Warriors 7, which is the next game I'm going to talk about, which is the next actual main Dynasty Warriors game I actually picked up. Pretty dang good. The characters were cool. The voice acting was top notch. The characters that needed to be recast were recast. Everyone was fine. Grant George is no longer Shun Jian, which kind of sucks, but they got a more fitting role. And this time you can switch different weapons use different weapons or all the weapons with different characters. So choosing a favorite character is a little easier, and especially now that there's costume DLCs that you can do. So if you like a character but you like the way he looked in an older game, you can do that. As far as Yahoo goes, I prefer his current look, and especially considering there's a red alternate version of it, so I usually use that with the sword, and my alternate weapon is that axe pull thing he used in 6 that I got as DLC. You know, Dynasty Warriors 7 is pretty good, and it also has an online mode, so if you want to play, you know, an online Dynasty Warriors game, you can. And it's almost like playing an MMO in a way, because, I mean, the weapon styles, you're pretty much free to use whatever you want. The characters, you know, the only one that really has a difference is probably Lu Bu. If you use a sword, he's a little bit slower than his actual, like, pull. So, yeah, but everyone else seems to do fine with the sword. It's just more of a matter of what their better weapon is, you know, which you can usually tell anyway if you know Dynasty Warriors at all. As the sort of a segue, I do play the Warriors Orochi games. I play it mainly for, you know, Nick's sake, because he's more of a Samurai Warriors fan, and I'm more of a Dynasty Warriors fan. So bringing the two together, you know, that's kind of cool. So I did play Warriors Orochi 2. I played that. I chose to play that one over the original because I figured it would be a little more updated, which, you know, it kind of was. I mean, there wasn't really much to it. It had more of a Samurai Warriors feel to it, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like the way they did it was the first one was more of a Dynasty Wars thing, and the second one, which I actually know is not even the real sequel, was more of a Samurai Warriors kind of deal. And speaking of which, they are making a Warriors Orochi 3, or technically 2, in Japan, where it uses all the updated versions, which is friggin' awesome now that I have actually like favorite characters in both series. You know? My only gripe so far is that because honestly, Warriors Orochi 3 is going to be fucking awesome. They're bringing in they're bringing in all the original characters from the Warriors Orochi series, and they're bringing in Ryu from Ninja Gaiden, some guy from Trinity Soul of Zulul, that RPG series, Ayane from Dead or Alive, Joan of Arc from Thousand Year War, or Bladestorm, which is like the medieval version of Dynasty Wars, kind of a piss poor version, and then Achilles from friggin' Warriors Legend of Troy. So we've got a crap ton of characters we can play as. So anyone who liked the only other thing they could do is add in all the characters from each games, and then throw in all the One Piece, Saint Seiya, and Fist of the North Star people, which would just like make my head explode. That'd be so amazing. Now, my only gripe is that for the PlayStation version, it's PSN download only, as far as we know. Now, this is because the game doesn't have English voice acting in it, which I actually kind of think is kind of stupid anyway, because, you know, for the most part, you know, they wouldn't have to record for too many. I mean, they could just copy in the attacks from, you know, Dynasty Warriors 7 and Samurai Warriors 3. You know? The only thing they would have to do is like re-record, do lines with the new characters, and then record lines for like the actual like dialogue. Heck, for the characters from other Warriors games, we wouldn't even have to do hardly anything. We could just, you know, throw in, you know, other stuff. You know, maybe there'll be DLC for it. I mean, the Xbox version will be retail, and who knows? Maybe Sony will come to their senses and be like, "Hey, we're gonna release it as a retail," which, you know, I guess that's fine. I mean, I'll get it anyway. But I mean, I think it's kind of dumb that it's gonna be downloadable, because what if you run out of space? Then you'll have to delete it or something. And this is the kind of game where I don't know if I really want to delete it. You know, that's just me. But like as